Imagine being forced into a life-or-death situation with no experience, no protection, and no way out. That was the horrifying reality for Rachel Hoffman, a 23-year-old college student who was coerced into becoming a police informant to escape drug charges. What should have been a simple operation turned into a deadly trap one that ended with her brutal murder. But how did a young woman with dreams of culinary school become entangled in such a dangerous situation? And how did her tragic fate lead to major legal reforms? This is the shocking story of Rachel Hoffman and the botched sting operation that changed law enforcement forever. Rachel Morningstar Hoffman was born in December 1984 in Clearwater, Florida. She was an intelligent, kind-hearted young woman with a promising future ahead. Studying psychology at Florida State University, Rachel was beloved by her friends and family for her bright spirit and willingness to help others. Like many college students, she dabbled in recreational drug use, mostly marijuana. But her casual habits would soon spiral into something much darker. In 2007, Rachel's world changed forever when she was caught with a small amount of drugs. It was her first brush with the law, but it wouldn't be her last. Despite the warning, she continued experimenting. And just months later, she was arrested again, this time with over 150 grams of marijuana and 4 pills. Facing the possibility of a criminal record, Rachel was terrified. A conviction would ruin her dreams of moving to Arizona for culinary school. That's when the Tallahassee Police Department offered her a way out. But at a deadly cost. Instead of facing legal consequences, Rachel was given a choice: become a confidential informant or face prosecution. Desperate to clear her record, she agreed. But Rachel had no idea that she was stepping into an unforgiving world filled with violent criminals and life-threatening risks. Unlike trained officers, Rachel was given no real preparation for her role as an informant. Her assignment? To buy 2.5 ounces of cocaine, 1,500 ecstasy pills, and a gun from 2 suspected drug dealers. The police provided her with $13,000 in cash, fitted a wire in her purse, and sent her alone into a high-risk operation. They assured her they'd intervene at the right moment. But as we now know, that moment never came. On May 7, 2008, Rachel met with the dealers at a designated location. But from the very start, things went terribly wrong. The dealers, Danilo Bradshaw and Andrea Jabbar Green, immediately sensed that something was off. Rachel had little knowledge about the drugs she was supposed to be buying, and her behavior raised suspicions. Realizing she might be working with the police, they decided to change the location of the deal. Rachel, likely unaware of how much danger she was in, agreed to get into their car. It was the last decision she would ever make. Meanwhile, the 2 police officers assigned to monitor the sting operation lost sight of Rachel almost instantly. Their radio contact with her wire also failed, leaving her completely unprotected. By the time authorities realized the situation had spiraled out of control, it was too late. The men drove Rachel out of sight, where they executed her in cold blood. She was shot 5 times once with the very gun she had been sent to buy. Her body was then dumped in a remote ravine in Taylor County, Florida. Rachel's disappearance sent shockwaves through the community. When police finally discovered her body 2 days later, the outcry was immediate. How could law enforcement have put an untrained civilian in such a dangerous position with almost no supervision? How could they allow her to be taken away so easily? The suspects, Bradshaw and Green, were quickly arrested and charged with Rachel's murder. In 2009, they were convicted and sentenced to life in prison. But while the killers were behind bars, the question remained, who was truly responsible for Rachel's death? Was it just the men who pulled the trigger? Or did the police have blood on their hands too? Rachel's parents, Margie and Irv Hoffman, were devastated, but they refused to let her death be in vain. They launched a campaign demanding changes to how law enforcement handled confidential informants, ensuring that no other family would have to suffer the way they did. In the wake of Rachel's murder, public outrage erupted over the reckless actions of the Tallahassee Police Department. The officers who orchestrated the sting were suspended without pay. But Rachel's family wanted more than just internal discipline. They wanted systemic reform. Their fight led to the introduction of Rachel's Law, passed in Florida in 2009. This law set new requirements for the use of confidential informants, including mandatory training for law enforcement on handling informants safely, increased protections and guidelines for individuals recruited as informants, the right for informants to consult with legal counsel before agreeing to cooperate with police. Rachel's Law was a major step in preventing similar tragedies, but critics argue that it still doesn't go far enough. Many believe that vulnerable individuals, like Rachel, should never be used in such high-risk operations without extensive protection and preparation. Rachel's story is not just a tragic anomaly, it highlights a systemic issue in law enforcement. Across the U.S., countless civilians, often young and vulnerable, are pressured into becoming informants under the threat of criminal charges. Many are thrown into life-threatening situations with little to no training, all in the name of justice. While law enforcement agencies argue that informants are crucial to taking down criminals, cases like Rachel's raise an important question. Is the cost too high? How many more innocent lives must be lost before serious change occurs? Rachel Hoffman's life was cut short due to a deeply flawed system, but her death was not in vain. Her story serves as a stark warning about the dangers of using untrained civilians as informants, and it has inspired ongoing efforts to reform confidential informant policies nationwide. Rachel Hoffman had dreams, ambitions, and a whole life ahead of her. But a reckless police operation turned her into a tragic statistic. Her parents fought tirelessly to ensure no other family would endure the same heartbreak, but the fight isn't over. If Rachel's story moved you, consider supporting organizations that advocate for legal reform and informant safety. Share her story, spread awareness, and push for policies that prioritize human lives over reckless policing tactics. Let Rachel's memory serve as a reminder. No one should have to pay the ultimate price for a system's failure. Enjoyed the video? Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you never miss an update. And if you found this interesting, share it with your friends. It really helps the channel grow.